Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy is with us now from Washington. Senator, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're pleased to have you, sir. Tell us if you think those signals that you say you have received to hold these two votes, to put them forward, will result in a commitment from the Senate Majority Leader to do just that.
Well, I've been up for about an hour after sleeping for 2 hours, and we're going to work today to make sure that we have that commitment to bring these votes before the body. As your reporter noted, it would be much better to be able to get a bipartisan agreement on this issue of keeping guns away from terrorists, but at the very least, we have to have a vote. Senator Feinstein has fairly dramatically modified her proposal to try to address many of the concerns that Republicans have, and so it may be that if we put this measure on the floor for a vote, either at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, we may be able to draw enough support to get it passed. I mean, the American public agrees with us that if you're on the terrorist watch list and you are not allowed to fly on a plane, then you certainly shouldn't be able to buy a dangerous assault weapon. That's our ask, to get a vote on that proposition and an expansion of background checks, and we're hopeful that we're going to get that either at the end of this week or next week.
Does your political instincts tell you the Republicans are moving on those two issues?
My instincts certainly tell me they're moving. I think if you listened over the course of the day yesterday, there were a number of Republicans who were madly scrambling to try to find some common ground. And I think that one of the reasons that Senator Feinstein wasn't able to join us on the floor yesterday is that she was trying to work out those compromises. I do think that our filibuster made a difference. I mean, let's be honest, the Senate was not going to debate these measures, had no plans to talk about ending gun violence this week on the floor of the Senate. And at the end of our filibuster, I think we made incredible progress to get these measures back on the agenda in the Senate this week.
You sent out a tweet yesterday in the morning that said, "I'm prepared to stand on the Senate floor and talk about the need to prevent gun violence for as long as I can. I've had #enough." What was a tipping point for you?
Listen, there's been so many tipping points for me. Yeah. I think I've taken the floor about 40 different times to scream and yell about the fact that since Sandy Hook, Congress has done nothing, hasn't passed a single law to try to reduce the slaughter that's happening on our streets. But when I came back to Washington and saw that in the wake of the worst mass shooting in this country's history, that the Republican leadership hadn't scheduled any debate this week on measures to end this epidemic, I just couldn't stand it any longer. And what's so heartwarming to me is that I decided to do this essentially that morning. And over the course of the day, organically, almost every single Democratic senator came down to join me. We had a dozen senators sitting on the floor at 11:30 last night. I think it shows the power of this issue, at least in our caucus.
Would any of the legislation that you're supporting have prevented the shooter in Orlando, the shooter in San Bernardino, or the shooter in Newtown from purchasing a gun?
So it's certainly a question as to whether this may have been impactful in Orlando. What this legislation that Senator Feinstein has offered would allow is for the FBI to put individuals on the list of those who can't buy weapons if they suspect that they are linked to terrorist organizations.
But as you know, if someone is currently on a terror watch list and goes to buy a gun, the FBI director said they are notified. There is an alert sent.
So there's an alert sent, but there's no prohibition on that individual walking out of the store with a weapon. And the fact is that in this case, the time between the purchase of the weapon and the attack was fairly short. And so if we have made a decision that the people on these lists can't get on a plane, and we've all made that decision, Republicans and Democrats, why don't we also make a decision that they can't get a weapon? I think that there's a question as if this law was in place, would it have been impactful in Orlando? It might have been. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's worthy to go forward.
Well, many people are applauding you for raising the issue again. Thank you very much, Senator Murphy, for joining us this morning.
All right, thank you.